In the most recent race in the NASCAR Cup Series, Club Speedway held its final race in the current layout that they've had since their introduction into the series in 1997. The plan is to have the track back on the schedule for the 2025 season, causing fans to ask two major questions. 1. What track is going to take over the West Coast swing next year? And 2. Why are they taking away a 2-mile racetrack from us? Well, thanks to NASCAR's new leadership, the series has been making many modifications to certain racetracks in order to provide more excitement and interest into the sport. Some modifications have been great, while others have been huge mistakes. Because of this, I figured it would be best to look at some of the most recent changes that we have seen to racetracks in the last few years. So today, let's dive into 10 of the biggest track modifications in recent memory. Number 1. Club Speedway. As mentioned in the introduction, Club Speedway will be redesigning their 2-mile racetrack. What I didn't mention is that the track will be 1/4 in size and be turned into a half-mile racetrack, driving away from speed and going more towards short track carnage. The response has been mostly negative due to the love for the style of racing that the track has provided the past few years. I mean, last year was the introduction to how much more exciting the next gen was going to be at intermediate tracks, and it also provided us with probably the best race of the Gen 6 era, where Logano and Hamlin collected each other, giving Kyle Busch the shocking but exciting win. So why change it at all? Well, to the track's defense, this plan has been in place for quite a few years. When it was first introduced, it was during the Gen 6 era, a car that was egregious at intermediate tracks, but exciting at short tracks and road courses, something that is humorous to look at now since the next gen car is the exact opposite. We will have to wait and see on whether or not this was the right call for the racetrack. If it runs like a Bristol race, awesome. If it runs like a Richmond race, however, then we are in big trouble. Number 2. Charlotte Motor Speedway. It's hard to imagine it now, but before the 2018 season, the NASCAR Series would only have 2 road courses on the Cup Series schedule, Sonoma Raceway and Watkins Glen International. In the early 90s and 2000s, many didn't mind this as road courses weren't a huge draw for the sport compared to other tracks that only turn left. However, thanks to the playoff format as well as multiple exciting finishes at the 2 tracks, many were starting to fall in love with the style of racing and pleaded with NASCAR to add another one to the Cup Series schedule. But what track was going to be added on to the schedule? Was it going to be Road America? Circuit of the Americas? Mid-Ohio? Nope. Instead, NASCAR decided to add an infield course as well as 2 chicanes to Charlotte Motor Speedway and change its fall race to a roval race, a concept only seen at the 24 Hours of Daytona and Formula 1 at Indianapolis. Although there were some flaws to the track in its first run, the race was actually pretty entertaining. It changed up the standard 10 tracks always seen in the playoffs and gave road courses an actual importance in the series. Of course, this track has now been questioned thanks to the excitement of intermediate tracks with the next-gen machine. However, it's hard to see this racetrack being taken off the list anytime soon thanks to the many stories it has produced in its short time span. Number 3. Kentucky Speedway. Kentucky Speedway was almost doomed from the start, but many would have never guessed how bad it was going to end up for the racetrack. Kentucky would be added as a new track to the Cup Series in 2011, being the first track to do so since 2001. Many fans weren't too excited about the racetrack as it looks similar to Texas Motor Speedway and Charlotte Motor Speedway, basically resembling the same cookie cutter style that fans were already sick of seeing at this point. Nonetheless, NASCAR and Bruton Smith, the CEO of Speedway Motorsports, were so optimistic about the track that Smith made the bold prediction that it would be the biggest race of the season, surpassing all the crown jewel events and the championship race. Yeah, this man was full of frijoles. As I can appreciate his optimism, it was still a ridiculous thing to say. The first race would be a disaster on the fan side, as many as 20,000 people were not able to attend the race due to the track's lack of preparation for the traffic. The following races after, the track would be so rough that many drivers would receive bloody noses just by the bumpiness of the road, meaning the Speedway Motorsports would need to do some modifications to the track, which they were able to do in 2016. Some of those adjustments to the track included fixing the drainage issues to avoid weepers, narrowing turns 1 and 2 by 14 feet to give cars coming out of pit road more room, and increasing turns 1 and 2 by 3 degrees while leaving turns 3 and 4 the same. The results did make some aspects of the race more exciting, but still not to the point where it was a must-watch race on the schedule. The only big highlight being when Kurt Busch edged out his brother on the final lap to win the 2018 race, deeming this track as a failure in the Cup Series. Number 4. Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Brickyard 400 has been on a crash course ever since the tire debacle of 2008, with poor attendance, lack of passing, and just all around being a boring race in itself. NASCAR has been doing everything it can to bring interest back to the crown jewel event. First, they tried to mess with the qualifying format, but that didn't do anything. Then they decided to make it the regular season finale. Who cares, since it was all about winning to make it into the playoffs, and we know damn well that an underdog wasn't going to win that race. Well, how about the 4th of July weekend, Xfinity on the road course and IndyCar in a doubleheader, to which everyone responded, meh. It's almost felt like NASCAR was going to give up on the track after being on the schedule for over 25 years until they noticed that the Xfinity road course race was quite fun at the end, and since the fans wanted more road courses, they decided on changing the Cup Series race to a road course for future events. How has this gone so far? Honestly, pretty atrocious. I'm seriously not trying to bag on Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but it seems like whatever they try to do for this track, it just doesn't work for NASCAR. Now, there's talks that the track plans to return back to the oval in the near future, which has surprisingly made a few fans happy, but as we saw a few years back, there was a reason why they decided to go to the road course to begin with. Here's hoping that the next gen car could bring back good racing to the iconic track. Number 5. Atlanta Motor Speedway. Many people have considered changing Michigan or Auto Club into a super speedway type track thanks to their massive size. However, I don't think anyone expected the next plate racing track to be at Atlanta Motor Speedway. In 2021, the track was in desperate need of a repave as the surface was getting so rough that it would eat through tires like a cheese grater. When NASCAR finally said that they were going to repave the racetrack in mid-2021, they added they were going to make the track more narrow, as well as raise the degrees of banking from 24 degrees to 28 degrees. The CEO of Speedway Motorsports, Marcus Smith, would state that with high banks in the turns, narrower width, and new pavement technology, Atlanta will be unlike any other mile-and-a-half track on the circuit. This will be specifically designed for close, competitive racing. Fans and drivers were surprised by the news and wondered what all that would entail in 2022. When it was announced that the much-hated double yellow line rule would be in effect at Atlanta, we immediately knew it was going to be a Daytona-style race. Some have liked it while others absolutely hate it. For me, my opinions are similar to Ross Chastain. The concept is very unique and sometimes fun to watch for a mile-and-a-half racetrack. However, it should only stay at Atlanta Motor Speedway and not go to any other racetrack. Number 6. Atlanta Motor Speedway. Wait a minute, I just talked about this track. Oh, that's right! The change to the Super Speedway was actually the second time Atlanta has had a redesign in the last 30 years. Back then, Atlanta Motor Speedway was shaped more like an actual oval rather than a quad oval. Also, the back stretch that we see today used to be the front stretch of the racetrack, creating a very unique racetrack where no other track resembled the same look. So, why was there a change? Well, honestly, the main reason for the change was that Speedway Motorsports wanted the track to look similar to their other mile-and-a-half tracks at the time, which of course were Texas Motor Speedway and Charlotte Motor Speedway. This would allow cars to go faster around the racetrack, as well as provide better viewing for the fans since tri-ovals provided more visibility for spectators. At first, people weren't too pleased with the fact that Atlanta Motor Speedway's unique design was being changed to a carbon copy of 2 other tracks on the schedule. However, after seeing cars rocket around the racetrack as well as put on some exciting finishes for the better part of 15 years, fans and drivers alike decided to welcome the new configuration with open arms for many years to come, while at the same time hating on the sister track 850 miles west. Screw you, Texas. Number 7. Sonoma Raceway. Sonoma. Always trying to find a way to be more exciting than Watkins Glen International, but always failing to do so. Sonoma came into the Cup Series in 1989 as a replacement to the defunct Riverside International Raceway. The track used to run on the full circuit until 1998, until the Speedway decided to add a chute to bypass turns 5 and 6 for NASCAR events. This helped provide spectators with more visibility, more speed, and improved competition. That was until 2019, when NASCAR decided to return to the full circuit in celebration of the track's 50th anniversary, a move that excited drivers and fans alike, but immediately lost the hype when they realized that the move took away most of the action for the race. See, even though Sonoma has 11 turns around the racetrack, there are really only 3 really entertaining spots: uphill to turn number 2, turn number 7, and turn 11. With the elimination of the chute, Turn 7 would no longer provide a high-braking tight corner that provided a lot of the action going into the S's, leading to some real mediocre races from the track. In 2022, the track decided to bring back the chute after realizing there was a reason why it was created for the stock car series. Here's hoping that the 2023 race is more exciting, because my goodness, the last race there was a boring one. Well, except for the post-race interview. Number 8. Phoenix Raceway. Before the announcement of reducing Auto Club Speedway into a half-mile racetrack, the only track that experienced a major overhaul similar to Atlanta Motor Speedway was Phoenix Raceway, a 1-mile racetrack that has been on the NASCAR circuit since 1988. Phoenix has seen some changes throughout its time in the NASCAR Cup Series. In 2003, Turn 2 would have the back wall reconstructed, as the wall used to come to an end where the old road course crossed to the oval track. In 2011, the track received a major configuration by increasing the bankings in all the turns, widening the dogleg out of the exit of Turn 2, and eliminating grass from around the racetrack. Lastly, in 2019, the track would move its start-finish line to where the old Turn 2 was, making it the most unique start-finish line placement since Talladega's line that sits after the tri-oval. The result made the experience much better for the fans, as they were no longer dealing with the burning sun in their face all race. However, the product on the track relatively stayed the same when looking at passes for the lead and cautions. Nonetheless, NASCAR was so excited by the many changes that were brought to the newly designed racetrack that they decided to move to the championship race of Phoenix for the last 4 seasons, including 2023. Now, many could argue that this track is not the best place to hold the championship race, as many consider Homestead to be the great racetrack for that, but to tell you the truth, I'm indifferent on the decision. The one thing that drives me crazy is that NASCAR goes to the track twice, rather than just having the last race be the only race. Kinda gives you an idea on who's gonna do the best out of the championship 4. Whatever people's thoughts are on all these changes, one thing is for certain, that it was the smartest renovation to do, as the track received the most important race of the season out of it. Number 9. Watkins Glen. Now, Watkins Glen fits into this category a little bit differently, as its renovations are not quite the same as the other tracks on this list. I mean, most of the renovations that we have seen completely changed the look of the tracks as well as the racing. However, Watkins Glen's main focus the last couple of decades has been making the areas around the track safer, and believe me, there has been a lot of changes. After the 2002 season, fencing would be added in turn number 3 after a scary incident would happen in the K&N East race in 2002. In 2005, the Glen would remove gravel traps and grass around the racetrack in exchange for pavement for the runoff areas. This would help reduce the amount of cautions thanks to cars getting stuck in the gravel after spinning out. After 2 hard crashes coming out of the exit of turn number 9 in 2009, the track would replace some of the area with more pavement, as well as widening the walls to avoid further scary incidents. It wouldn't be the only spot that would require the wall to be moved, after another scary incident would happen in 2011, this time entering turn number 2. On the last lap, David Reagan would run out of room, resulting in him smacking the outside wall, causing his car to shoot back onto the racing surface, collecting David Rudiman in what has to be the most frightening incident in 2011. Lastly, in 2015, a full repave of the track would be done, which resulted in the track running smoother. Overall, the racing has stayed relatively the same after all these modifications. With that being said, safety has been majorly improved in the last 20 years, which is something I'm sure everyone in the sport can appreciate. And number 10, Bristol Motor Speedway. Ever since the introduction of Eldora Raceway to the NASCAR Truck Series in 2013, many fans were wondering if NASCAR would ever do the same for the Cup Series. I mean, dirt races are what started the series in itself. Well, in 2020, the announcement would be made that the Cup Series, for the first time in over 50 years, would have a dirt track on the schedule. No freaking way, said the fans. Which track is going to be added to the schedule? Eldora? Knoxville? Maybe a rotation of dirt tracks around the country? Absolutely not, said NASCAR, as instead it would be at Bristol Motor Speedway. Wait, what? Yes, NASCAR would state that the spring race at Bristol would not be run on the concrete, but rather have multiple layers of dirt applied to the track and be run as a 250-lap event. See, the problem most people had was not that the Cup Series was getting a dirt race added to the schedule. Well, most people anyways, but rather NASCAR was going to take away a good old-fashioned Bristol race in the process. Sure, it would have been in the same vicinity, but we all knew it wasn't going to be the same. I mean, Bristol was providing the most exciting races of the season in the late 2010s. Why even think about changing anything to the track? The first race would wind up being a bit of a nightmare to watch, as dirt covered the action thanks to the sun beating down on the track. While the following year in 2022, the race would receive so many cautions that the average speed of the race would be a blistering 34.97 miles per hour. Yeah, I'm sure every fan in attendance that day drove faster to the racetrack than the average speed of these stock cars. Here's hoping that this year can go better, but if not, then maybe NASCAR will soon understand why the sport hasn't raced on dirt since 1970. And those have been 10 of the biggest track modifications in recent memory. Were there any that I left out? Let me know down in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate you all, and until next time, you all take care.